you tried to make it short and sweet.
Hello my darlings, and welcome to my short books reading vlog where I read books that are less than 200 pages. Apologies for the ambient gardening noises, but I cannot do anything about it. People be blowing. So I'm just going to get straight into it because I've got limited times. It's going to be a short and sweet vlog too. So I read a bunch of short books that are in this sort of overarching series that are hosted on reactormag.com, where you can read a lot of short stories for free. The first of this is called The Mongolian Wizard by Michael Swanwick. It clocks in at 22 pages. A lot of these books are between 18 to 32 pages each, these little stories. So I'm going to mostly talk about the first one, and then I'll briefly mention the second ones and what I rated them and what I rated all of these books as a whole. So we have, this book is a sort of alternate history fantasy that involves a lot of espionage. It's set in a Europe that is almost like ours, but it keeps glitching if you stare too hard at it. You know, it's about a group of magical people, so there's magic in this reality, who are gathering for this very serious wizard international conference in which they're trying to determine how to stop their common enemy known as the Mongolian Wizard. So the series opens up at this spectacular alpine castle, which is hosting the International Wizarding Conference. And it's in a very early 20th century Europe from an alternate timeline. And we have our dual protagonists. So we've got Sir Toby Willoughby Quirke, his full name doing most of the work. He's a British wizard with manners, secret agendas, and a portable suitcase filled with 2-inch tall soldiers. And then you have Captain Lieutenant Franz Karl Ritter, who is head of security, member of the ominously named Werewolf Corps, werewolves aren't involved though, who can ride shotgun in his wolf's mind. So he has like a wolf comrade, familiar, and he goes into the wolf's head and he's able to smell and see as the wolf sees. So while the conference is going on and they're all having their debate about the Mongolian Wizard, Sir Toby does this demonstration of his magical miniature military tech by sending them into the castle to kill all the rats, kill all the vermin, after which he also turns invisible. Ritter is naturally sus and suspects espionage. He's like, did anyone count how many of these soldiers he sent off into the walls before he sent them off into the walls? Like, don't you think perhaps it might be a bit possible that he conveniently leaves some of his soldiers behind to spy on us? Because even though they have a common enemy, it's still different countries, you know, they've all got their own agendas and they all don't really trust each other that much. So he heads off on his wolf-guided investigation, which leads to a basement. It leads to a confession of sorts, and it leads to a much worse discovery that the tiny soldiers have all been killed, along with a basilisk. What the basilisk seems to have been guarding, which were phoenix eggs. And from there, it just escalates. So there is a lot of drama. It's very fantastical. So there are a lot of magical creatures interspersed in all of these stories, which is really cool. The humor is very dry, but there is some humor there. The world building is really interesting. Fucking side note, animals are killed in this. So that's rough. That is rough. But this first one, what did I rate this first one? 4.25. I really enjoyed it. It was really interesting. You're just thrown immediately into the story because these are short stories, and I love that. And it's written in a way that you're getting a grasp on, like I said, the world building and the magic system pretty quickly. So the second story was called The Fire Gown, 21 pages. I gave that 4.5 stars. I won't tell you what these are about because they're so short and I don't want to ruin anything. You can sort of guess by the titles, yeah? That's the lorikeets. Then we have Day of the Kraken, which is 19 pages. I gave that 4.25. House of Dreams, 32 pages, gave that a 4. Night of the Salamander, 23 pages. I gave this 3.25. It was my lowest rated because it contains pedo grape and is also a bit homophobic. This one just, didn't love this one. Pyramid of Krakow, which I gave 3.75, 25 pages. Phantom in the Maze, 28 pages, 3.5. Murder in the Spook House, 21 pages, 4 stars. The New Prometheus, 32 pages, 4.5 stars. Halcyon Afternoon, 3.5 stars. Don't remember how many pages that was. Dragons of Paris was 31 pages, gave that a 4. So in total, this added up to 275 pages for all of these stories. I don't know if there's more coming out, but there are 11, I think it was so far. And my average rating was a 3.95. This is now the short story collection that I have rated the highest. So I just really liked the world, and I really liked it was very intriguing to me. So I think if you like alternate history, but you also want some magic and some action in that, you'll enjoy it. And if you like competent, suspicious men who were circling each other with secrets, it was giving Sherlock Holmes a little bit to me, as well as the T. Kingfisher series. I can't remember the name, but I'll put pictures up above. It reminded me of that. And I didn't finish Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, but it also reminded me a little bit of that. So these are similar comparisons. I then continued on. I'm so sorry with that noise. The front's worse because I've got the leaf blowers. Critical Role, Mighty Nein Origins. This one is about Fjord Stone. This was 56 pages. I gave this a 3.25. So in this one, we learn about Fjord, and Fjord grew up in an orphanage on the coast, surrounded by kids who thought him being a half orc meant that he's scum that must be bullied. So Fjord himself, though, is actually very soft-spoken, he's very anxious, and he just wants to belong. And so one day he heads to Port Damali, hoping for a fresh start, and he's somehow ends up stumbling into this job where he gets a mentor and a weird, ominous sword that does not come with a user manual. It's whispering promises of power and destiny, but also it's telling him, consume. So Fjord reinvents himself. He takes on a deeper voice. He tries to emulate confidence and pirate captain vibes, but underneath his, tough guy facade, he's still just this kid who's trying to outrun his past and figure out who he is. Also doing this without letting in an eldritch sea god who wants to take him over and complete its plans, which we don't know what its agenda is. So in this book, I guess it's, showing that sometimes confidence can be magically borrowed for a time. And it's about, your identity and found family and reinventing yourself, and power coming with a price, and, also racism as well. The art in this one, I think it contrasted Ford's inner softness with the imposing exterior that he's, constructing to show to the world. It also had a lot of nautical, melancholic, oceanic palettes in it. I think you'll like this if you like soft boys who are in big scary bodies and fans of nautical fantasy with cursed artifacts. I don't like Fjord, I'm going to say that. Out of the whole crew, he's my least favourite. Birds, bro. Annoying. So then I read Critical Role, Mighty Nein Origins, Nott the Brave, which was 56 pages, and I gave this one a 4 stars. This is about Veth, who is living the dream. She is in a quiet village. She has a loving husband, a beautiful baby boy, but unfortunately, fantasy fate gods intervene and destroy the domestic bliss. Raiders come and kidnap her and her family, and she makes a very desperate, terrible deal to save her husband and son, but it's at the cost of her body, her whole identity, and her entire sense of self. She ends up being transformed into a goblin. So goblins are the ones that kidnap them. And she is now a goblin who hates goblins. And she ends up renaming herself Nott the Brave. Cue alcoholism, a lot of crossbow violence, stealing as emotional regulation, and eventually stumbling into the Mighty Nein. So people who are weird enough to not immediately reject her. This one lent into horror of the body, identity loss, parental desperation, and it still had that touch of gallows humor as well, which I really love. And this story hits not because it's not about becoming brave overnight. It's about surviving long enough to maybe feel brave someday, and with the right support and friends. The art, it was very shadowy. It showed the distorted goblin perspectives and the moments of stillness where grief came to linger. It was dominated by desaturated greens, teals, greys, and mossy blues. It's the main themes in this, there was a lot of trauma. Bro, this was rough. I did not know this was Nott's history. It was a lot more devastating than I expected. I didn't even know that she wasn't actually born a goblin. So it was full on. She's very courageous, and she gave up so much. I think if you love tragic backstories, this is it. If you like crying over the sort of I did it to save them narratives, this delivers. Yeah, that was a 4 stars. Then I read the extra. 1 second. My apologies. I had to shoo them off for a second. They were just way too bloody loud. They'll come back. I read the extra by Annie Neugebauer. So this was 96 pages and I rated this one a 3.75. So this is about 10 backpackers who head out on a wilderness trip involving nature, camaraderie, and the mild terror of sleeping outdoors. Night falls. There is some sort of technical glitch and all of their headlamps blink out. But they had spare batteries, so they put the batteries in and then they continue on and set up camp. But there are now 11 people. There were previously 10. No one, though, seems to know who the extra is. No one can agree on which person doesn't belong. Everyone remembers everyone else. So obviously their memories have been tampered with, and it's this whole investigation. It's a very minimalist horror novella that is utilizing awkwardness and social pressure and our need for consensus against you. It's building that dread through those metrics because they have to figure out who isn't here in a way that's not alerting the stranger to what they're doing. But like I said, their mental facilities have been compromised. So there's just a lot of like implications in this one, ambiguity. And yeah, look, it didn't work for me because of the ending. It's ambiguous, okay? So you're left unsure. The themes in this were of social conformity, identity, belonging, consensus on what is reality, and also politeness. You know, like I said, they're paid guides. People have paid to be on this trip. They don't want to upset anybody and get negative reviews and accuse people of not being human. You know, it was an really interesting premise. I think you'll like it more if you're fans of just very quiet, unsettling horror. And if you like the game Among Us, trying to suss out things, I needed more certainty. I also felt like they weren't questioning enough or investigating intelligently enough to really try and pick who could be the imposter. So yeah, I gave it a 3.75. It's quick, it's fast paced, but like it just didn't go all the way for me. So let me quickly sum up all the books I read. I'm so sorry for all of the noise that was in this. I've just gone out of my notes app in this vlog. Okay, so we had the Mongolian Wizard sort of series by Michael Swanwick. So that is a magical spy story that's set in an alternate Earth that's on the brink of an inevitable magical war where even the best prophecy ends in fire. There's a lot of time warping travel stuff that also comes into play at the end. Like I said, it involves a lot of different fantasy aspects. We then had Critical Role Mighty Nein Origins, Fjord Stone. This was a tender, funny origin story about a half-orc who finds power at sea and learns that becoming yourself is harder than acting confident. We then had Critical Role Mighty Nein Origins, Nott the Brave. This is a heartbreaking fantasy origin story about losing your body, your name, your family, your life, and choosing to keep going anyway. It explains a lot about the alcoholism. And then the extra by Annie Neugebauer, which I gave 3.75. This is a backpacking trip, which turns into a meditation on how one extra person on a group hike can make you question your reality. So those were all of the short books that I read for this reading vlog. Let me know down below if you have been on a camping trip that did not go to plan. And until next time, get shorty, star child.